Welcome to Leader You by Black River Performance Management, where we believe work should fuel the human spirit, not drain it. In this leadership podcast, we will dive into the lived experiences of people flourishing in today's workplace and beyond. Join us to hear real-life examples of experiences from our own lives and from the leaders we know and trust. Hello, and thank you for listening to the Leader You podcast. Today, I want to talk to you about one of our tenets of Black River, which is enthusiasm does not equal competence. And we talk about this a lot because think about the first time you started a job, how enthusiastic you were. You come in and you're all jonesing to go and raring to go and very excited to be in that new role. And it doesn't take very long for that enthusiasm to actually start to wane. Actually, about that 2, 3, 4 month, all the way up to that 6 month mark is when that enthusiasm starts to drop. And one of the reasons that enthusiasm starts to drop in that normal period there, whether it's a new job, a new relationship, whatever it is, that competence that is needed for that role or that relationship actually starts to, um, you don't have the competence that you need to perform at the level that you'd like, and you start to realize, oh my gosh, did I sign up for too much here? Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe I've bit off more than I can chew. I'm sure many of you have felt that feeling before. And that's because we have the enthusiasm and we're jonesing to start the job or we're jonesing for this new relationship. And then we recognize it's going to be harder than we thought. And we're going to actually have to build some skills. So this happens multiple times, but there's actual science to it. And one of the reasons we talk about this is because oftentimes we see people get hired on into roles and they're super enthusiastic. And so their new manager takes it on as if they're highly competent because they checked all the boxes on the resume. Well, the resume is a screening, it's a screening tool that tells you, yeah, they have some of these competencies, but just because they've done something in a different location or a different organization doesn't mean that all of those competencies carry over with them. So let me give you an example. Um, let's just say I'm an accountant at a bank and I come over to a nonprofit organization and it's my first month on the job. Of course, I have competency as an accountant, but I don't have competency even though my enthusiasm might be high and I'm stoked to work for this nonprofit that is mission focused. And I'm really excited to work with the team I've just started on, and I'm highly enthusiastic. It doesn't mean my competency is equal to my enthusiasm. My enthusiasm isn't equal to my competence. And so what that means is that person's still going to need some onboarding and some training as it relates to bring their competence levels up. As we know in human flourishing, we need to have competence. When we talk about the car, competence, autonomy, and relatedness. Competence is something we all need, all living organisms need to thrive. And so let's just say this accountant moves to this nonprofit and now they're competent in accounting skills, but they're not as competent as um, at these laws for nonprofit or for this software system or for this culture, this team. And so the competence may have been there, but they're in a new environment. And when you switch environments, just because the person's enthusiasm is high doesn't mean they need you to just hand them the keys and tell them to call you if they have any problems. They still need some onboarding. They still need somebody to kind of handhold them for a little bit to get them embedded in the culture, to get them connected, to get that level of competence up. Because what happens is if we don't pay attention to this is where we risk losing really good people in that first 6 months to a year when they start to realize, wow, I didn't really get much help and I don't know what I'm doing. And now I don't want to tell anybody. And then they end up faking it, right? Fake it till you make it type thing. And that's not, it puts a lot of stress on them. And it also, it puts a lot of stress on the organization when things are getting done improperly. And it also doesn't help with the brand recognition or the reputation of the organization. So I've had this happen to me where I've went into a job before where, I went from one university to another university, and it was kind of like, just here's the keys, you can figure it out. And while I did, it still wasn't it was still a completely new environment, and it had different software systems, it had completely different cultures. Even in a university, let's say, one or even a hospital, one department has a completely different microculture than the overarching culture. So you have to keep into account that whatever branch you're at or whatever location you're at, or just because you're from one place and you're moving into another doesn't mean it's going to be the same environment. Even in the same organization, they have different microcultures, and ways of doing things. And so people still need to be brought up to the level of competence where they feel that they're supported. And this helps with them learning to be able to ask for what they need. That's part of self leadership, which I do a lot of work on with people in coaching and in my courses that I have. I have a self leadership course that I do once a year. This is a 6-month course. It actually just ended today, and it'll be starting up again in the fall in September. But the self leadership is all about learning to ask for what you need, for advocating for yourself, for time and priority management, all of these types of things. And when we think about leading ourselves and asking for what we need, those are the things that will help us to gain the levels of competence we need. But oftentimes it takes that first tenet we talk about, which is vulnerability. It takes that vulnerability to share with, hey, yeah, I do. I know my resume. I know you know that I have budgeting experience, but I have only budgeted, a handful of times, and this is a new system. Or maybe I've grant written, but I've only grant written once a year, so I don't feel very competent in it. Is there a class I could take? Is there somebody that might be able to mentor me? Do you know anything about AI and grant writing? Know what you need to ask for and be okay with asking and leading up, because people actually, your boss can't actually read your mind. And so the more that you can learn to articulate and lead up by asking for what you need, that will help you gain those levels of competence. Because what you'll notice is if your competence doesn't raise, and your competence and your enthusiasm both start to wane, that's where you actually are in danger of, you know, losing that person, or just burning out, and even worse, just staying in the role and being mediocre. I think a lot of people get stuck in that place where they just start to, the system actually trains them not to care, and they don't feel good about it, and they don't thrive, and the organization doesn't thrive either. So it's super important to really learn to be a self leader and recognize your enthusiasm and how that starts to wane, and see how that relates to your competence. I have a quick story that I think is fun to share, because I've been watching my husband Rob try to pick up a new sport. Of he is an avid fisherman, but he's been working on shore fishing these last few years since we've been going to Mexico, and he's highly enthusiastic, and he's got the gear, and he likes to get the stuff, and he likes to spend time out there, and he enjoys it, and he puts a lot of time in. The enthusiasm is high, and the competence was really low. He'd be lucky to catch something. He caught a seagull first, or no, not a seagull, pelican. Caught a pelican, and so he's out there trying, casting his line out there, trying to get things. That one time he pulled in a manta ray, didn't know how to get that off as it was looking at him. He's afraid if it's a stingray, he's not sure, didn't have the tools, and so he learned from that experience. And then he watches YouTube videos, he learns from other people that are good at this, and finds fishing mentors and talks to people and just learns more and more and more. His enthusiasm is high, but like I said, the competence is really low. As time has gone on, he has been consistent. He's looked, he's searched, he's studied YouTube and has taken notes and gotten new lures. And just this last month, we were down there and he was showing other guys how to fish, and he was landing lots of fish and he was having the best time. So his competence has actually went up. And I was teasing him that, his competence matches his enthusiasm now. And it's so fun to watch him as he's really built this skill. And that's what I really want to share, is that competence is just skill building. And even if you're not good at, say, budgeting, you can get good at it. Even if you're not good at fly fishing, sharing your emotions, whatever the skill is, soft skills, all of these are skills that you can learn if you put the time and the effort and you invest in yourself. And I'm going to even challenge you to not have your work invest in you, that you take the initiative to invest in yourself, because part of becoming a self leader is not expecting other people to invest in your development. That is wonderful if you have a working place that does, but I would say invest in yourself. Put a little bit of side money on the side to grow yourself, whether that's through classes, whether that's through coaching, whether that's through counseling, whether that's retreats, whatever your modality, invest in yourself and hopefully find somebody that will invest in you as well. Um, but but don't just wait for other people to invest in you. Invest in yourself, and bring those levels of competence up. The more your competence goes up, and especially in the soft skill areas of communication, emotional intelligence, understanding yourself, owning your stuff, being accountable, and not blaming other people. The more you raise those levels of competence, the more you're just going to be successful and shine as a leader, and you model those behaviors that you'd like your team to display. So, this is one of those examples of actions speak louder than words, and people are always watching. So, if you don't feel like you have some levels of competence, I'm going to ask you to be vulnerable and share. Hey, I don't think I'm the best at that. I think I could use some mentoring. Could I get some coaching for that? Could I get a training on that? Ask for what you need. More likely than not, and I work with a lot of organizations across a lot of industries. Most times, bosses want to see you succeed. What happens is they don't know what you don't know, and when you say everything's good, they're like, okay, all is good. But when you learn to advocate for yourself and bring your own level of competence up, everybody wins. And the happier you are in your job, the happier you are at home, and the happier you are in life. So, um, be vulnerable, ask for what you need, share what you don't think you're that great at, and commit to getting better at it through whatever modality you think you would learn best in, and ask for that support. And I recognize some of you may work in places that aren't going to support you, and that's good information too. That's good information to know. If you work in an organization where they're not going to support your needs, those are different questions, and I'd be happy to answer those in our Ask Me Anything question, and I might do a podcast on that. What happens when you work for an organization that doesn't invest in you or your professional development? That could be a whole nother topic. So thank you for listening today. Remember, enthusiasm does not equal competence, but competence is our own responsibility, and we all thrive when we raise our own levels of competence. So thank you, and please share. Love you all.